Episode 9. The Price of Power. He's killing me. The thought burned through her brain, ordering her body to do something, anything, but Nova couldn't move or breathe. You can handle it. You can. He squeezed her hand even tighter, overwhelming her with yet another wave of pain. Tears streamed from her wide eyes as a roaring fire engulfed her insides. What am I supposed to... Try, explore the sensations. If I want to stop him, I need to understand what kind of spell he's casting. Rather than succumbing to the panic, the catcher concentrated and accepting the pain. Only then would she be able to find its true source. She quickly realized it was her presence, surging, growing, even though she could hardly bear its pressure. That was when everything became clear. The Pravis is filling me with power. Ancient, wild, great power. A force that would break anyone. And Nova knew she wasn't an exception. Her mind was racing in a desperate attempt to latch onto something, to use this information, to find a way out. But her thoughts faded before she could trace the connections between them. In an instant, her body went limp, leaving her head empty. No. Nova didn't hear the door swing open. Nova! Onyx rushed to protect her fiddler, covering the distance from the entrance to Idris in one leap. Unleashing her claws, she was about to strike, but a powerful surge of magic threw her back. And yet the cat managed to orient herself, turning over in the air to avoid hitting the wall and landing on her four paws. She was ready to attack again, but Idris waved his hand in her direction, holding her in place with a spell. Now that the Pravis was holding the catcher's wrist with one hand, she began sinking to the floor. Taking advantage of his opponent's distraction, Shen launched an electric charge at him, but it dissipated before reaching its target. Onyx strove to free herself from the magical restraints. Everything about them suddenly began to shake. Blinding light emanated from the Witcher's chest, filled the room. Nova was slipping in and out of consciousness. Idris kept pressing on, his face distorted in a mad, desperate expression. Life was leaving his victim. No, you have to survive. What are you doing to her? The thickened air made it difficult to move. Realizing that any second could be the catcher's last, Shin reached out to pull her away from the Pravis. Yet as soon as he touched her, unbearable pain coursed through his body. Yes. Unbridled energy consumed the space, crumbling, dominating every molecule. Then it froze, whispering its secrets, vast mysteries that were beyond human comprehension. One more second. And it was over. In the silence that reigned, one could hear the dust settling. When Onyx came to, her paws refused to obey, and her vision was blurred. After some time, she finally managed to get up and walk to the three people lying on the floor. She tried to meow, but no sound came out. It felt as if thousands of grains of sand were scratching her throat. Her weakened heart was beating faster now, gripping by terror. Taking a step towards the catcher, she fell near her, head spinning. Minutes slipped away, one after another, equally empty, dead, until... She sat up abruptly, her chest heaved with rapid breaths. Every inch of her body tingled, and the blood in her veins raced at an incredible speed. She was unbearably hot and cold at the same time. Nova stared at her own hands, trying to figure out what had happened to her. She knew something had changed, but what exactly? The Pravis and Shin lay with their eyes closed, but they were breathing. Seeing Onyx, Nova tensed up with fear. Her limbs ached, but she ignored the pain, moving closer to the anamorphics. Onyx. She nuzzled into the witch's palm, and Nova gently stroked her head. We're alive. Everything's all right. Nova didn't know what to do. Every thought required immense effort, and she could barely remember what happened before she lost consciousness. How much noise have we made here? Shit. Shin sat up, holding his head. Noticing that his nose was bleeding, he cursed and wiped the blood with his sleeve. The catcher did the same, only realizing that a red trickle was running down her lip. What was that? I don't know. I'm just glad we're alive. The warlock nodded at Idris. One of the others who works for the Magistrum? That's the Pravis. Shin's initial surprise turned into a painful grimace. Traitor. It took the warlock multiple attempts to get up. He couldn't help Nova, so she was left to her own devices. Do you also feel like you got clutched 100 times over? I'd say 1,000. The conduit. She just shook her head. I'm gonna be sick. Staggering to the side, she stretched out her hands to keep her balance. Shin started coughing, beads of sweat running down his forehead. He reached into his pocket for the chalk to make a portal, but stopped when Idris moved, causing everyone to turn to him. Onyx hissed, prepared to jump. He's dying. Only then Nova realized one important detail. His presence. She suddenly remembered that she'd figured out what the Pravis was doing to her. Hold on. It was a ritual. He gave me his power. And part of it ended up in you, Shin. You touched me as it was being channeled into me. But what was he trying to achieve? Shin and I just feel terrible. If he just wanted to kill me, he could have found a simpler way that wouldn't bring himself harm. But then again, I guess I don't have to dig too deep. He must be working for the church and acting in its interests. Shin pressed on his eyelids, shaking his head. We can figure that out later. Let's get out of here first. Clearly not in the mood to reason with her, the warlock waved his hand. Onyx meowed in protest when Nova took a step towards the unconscious man. It's fine, he can't hurt me. She carefully crouched down and touched Idris's shoulder, checking to see if he could respond. His eyelids fluttered and he opened his eyes. Finally. Finally what? He coughed. His voice was weak, but she could hear the genuine joy in his tone. I'm free. The catcher frowned. Her stomach twisted and she grimaced, pressing her hand against it. Tell me what all this means. You transfer your presence to me, why? The bravest took a slow, deep breath. It wasn't my presence. What are you talking about? It's the power of the conduit. He was the conduit. Now, you are the conduit, Nova. You and your friend, to be precise. He licked his dry lips. The more he talked, the more clearly Nova understood that he was on the verge of death. But how is that possible? My time is running out. I don't want to spend my last moments on Earth telling you my story. That's not what's important right now. You almost killed me if it weren't for Shin. I'm sorry. I wanted to believe that you could handle it. You are stronger than all those who came before you. How many? How many lives have you taken like this? Regret flashed in his dull eyes. I didn't know what I was doing when I decided to volunteer as a vessel for the artifact. I wanted to help my people. Someone had to. He didn't bother to explain the witch, or could only guess what exactly he meant. But I'm tired. I can't leave the Vatican. I can't be free. The only way was to transfer this energy to someone else. And now that I've succeeded, I can finally die. Nova was seething with rage. What about me? Us? What are we supposed to do now? I don't know if I can bear this power. I didn't ask for this. But you did. You came here to steal the conduit. Consider your goal achieved. His expression was a mixture of many emotions, from pain, shame, relief, and quiet happiness. I'm sorry, Nova. Idris sighed, closing his eyes. I'm sorry. The word slipped from his lips in a barely audible whisper. His heart stopped beating. Almost numb from the shock, the woman got to her feet and turned away. Shin was fiddling with a piece of chalk, and Onyx stood guard at the door, listening to what was happening in the hallway. I'll tell them what I learned when we leave this place. This is just too much. You haven't finished the portal?
My hands are barely working.
He growled a spell under his breath. Several charges suddenly shot out of his fingertips, trying to fly in different directions, into a ceiling, the floor, into Onyx. Flawless feline reflexes helped the Animorphics evade in time, but one spiteful meow couldn't convey all of her emotions. Onyx took her human form. What the shit are you doing? For the first time since Nova knew him, the Warlock was at a loss for words. He looked scared.
I can't.
Support him. The catcher asked softly. What is it?
I can't control my presence.
What?
It's not listening. I didn't intend to fire a charge at you, even though I desperately want to sometimes.
He crossed the room and 2 steps to approach the Pravis. Grabbing him by the clothes, he lifted the man off the floor in an attempt to wake him up. Shin, he's...
What have you done to us?
The realization caught up with him after a couple of moments. He's dead. It seemed that Nova herself only truly understood what it meant. We were supposed to do everything quietly, leave no trace. And here we are leaving a body. She stared blankly ahead. The fact that Shin's presence wasn't obeying him probably meant her own wouldn't obey her either. Her legs gave way, trying not to fall. She leaned against the wall and looked out the window. It was still snowing outside. Except the snow was falling abnormally slowly. Filling her gaze, Onyx gulped. Nova, what did you do? I don't know. I didn't...
That's why no one has come for us yet. You've slowed down time outside this room.
Isn't that a good thing? That you can do that now? It would be good if I did it intentionally and could control it. I have no idea what is going on. How wide the radius of the spell is, how long it'll hold, how it'll affect us. Shin wiped the sweat off his face, stepping away from Idris's lifeless body.
Maybe that's why my presence isn't working as it should.
There might be another reason. The Pravis told me he gave us the power of the conduit. I don't understand what that means for us either. Wait, one thing at a time. Nova the time bubble, can you remove it? I'll try, but first, we have to decide what to do next.
I don't know if I can portal us. Even if my magic behaves normally again, I'm not sure I'm well enough to pull it off.
So leaving the same way we came in is our only option. Only now we've got the Magistrum on our tail. I doubt what's happening here has escaped their notice.
I don't have a choice.
The Warlock raised his hand to his nose where it started bleeding again. They agreed on a plan. Shin eventually managed to draw the portal with Onyx's help. In the meantime, Nova was trying to figure out her magic. After what Idris did, her presence changed. A wrong step could lead to disaster. Dizziness and nausea weren't helping at all. Ready? No. Hey. Onyx looked at the catcher, forcing herself to smile. You'll do great. Nova exhaled and nodded, uncertain. Thank you. She tried to focus on the sensations to get her magic to work with her, not against her. At first, it seemed like an impossible task. The energy of the conduit protested, raging, threatening to tear its vessel apart. She did manage to close the time sphere outside the room, but it cost her. She lost consciousness for a few seconds right after. One of her allies caught her. The world felt impossibly loud. She was struggling to breathe, even more so than before. Barely able to stand, Nova fell out of reality for some time, but vaguely remembered them agreeing that Shin would try to teleport them. Hearing a crash, she arrived at the conclusion that the attempt had failed. Can you walk? The catcher had to try very hard to hear the words through her nasty ringing in her ears. Shin vomited. Onyx glanced back and forth between him and the witch with no idea what to do with the two of them. I probably need... Then Anamorphix raised her hand, silencing her mid-sentence. Her cat ears twitched, recognizing hurried footsteps outside. Stay behind me. Onyx turned. The fur on her back stood on end. Nova clenched her fist and focused on the door. This couldn't be their end. The mere thought of Onyx being shackled gave her the strength to prepare for the attack. The door swung open. A man dressed in black robes stepped inside. Oh. Onyx, no. Renato covers his face with his hands, but Onyx's sharp claws never reached him. The cat stopped when she heard the catcher call out to her. Everyone froze. It took Renato a split second and one glance at the Pravis to realize how badly things had gone wrong. Quickly, follow me. Shin and Onyx realized who the priest was. Hearing the noise grow in the corridor, they all followed Renato, who unlocked a small door leading into a dark hallway. They walked for several minutes, slipping unnoticed from one room to another. Soon they found themselves in a dusty, dimly lit room. Renato gave them a minute to catch their breath as he rummaged through an old chest. Pulling out some clothing, he handed it to the catcher and the warlock. They know the intruders infiltrated the Vatican in a magistrum in uniforms. You need to change. His tone was relatively even, but his lips looked almost white with anxiety. Nova swallowed her apologies and excuses and silently went behind the screen. What a heavy fabric. Looks like some old ceremonial robes. Won't be the most comfortable, but I don't really have a choice. Dedication, transformation, manifestation, realization, and ascension. Buy all the outfits. I like realization. It's very pretty. All good. Let me guess, we're going to have a chance to do our hair, too. Can you get the thing off my screen so I can actually see the hairstyles? Thank you. Short curls, dark brown hair. Short curls dyed. Short curls black. Short curls dyed. So none of them keep the red. Alright, fine. I guess I'll go with that one. Changing took much longer than usual. Knowing that they had no time to spare, only made it worse. Returning to the others, she found Shin sitting on a chair, still fiddling with the buttons of his new outfit.
From one clown costume to another. I was supposed to die in my coat, not whatever this is.
Let's hope no one will die tonight. Onyx was quiet in the corner, took on her human form to ask a question. You know each other, Nova. Renato doesn't know the Incineration Alliance found me out. We have to behave accordingly, as if my connection with the church is still a secret. Renato answered before the catcher could. Yes, we do.
You have some interesting acquaintances, catcher.
Onyx, Shin, this is Renato. He can be trusted. Renato nodded to her, grateful. The Magistrum was transporting a group of prisoners from the Vatican tonight, so until now, most of the enforcers weren't present. I didn't know they were planning this. I suppose the operation was kept secret. Now the whole squad is back here, and there's a lot of them. So you will need to escape quietly. We cannot allow you to be noticed. They didn't ask each other questions, knowing this was neither the time nor the place. Stay here. I'll check the path to and come back to take you to the catacombs. Without waiting for a response, he left, locking the door behind him. Nova sank to the floor against the wall, hiding her face in her hands. What a mess. Why is this my life? Just why? I want peace, calm. I just want to live, not run around searching for some ancient artifacts and going on missions. She pressed her fingers to her left wrist, feeling her pulse still abnormally fast. Shin and I are carrying the force of the conduit within us, and it seems nothing good will come of it. A painful premonition curled up in her chest, releasing its fangs and slowly digging them into her heart. Everything was happening so fast that when they stopped for a moment, her mind was gripped by the naked horror of the unknown that stretched ahead. I can't rely on my presence, and I don't know when it's going back to normal. Will it go back to normal? What if, in the end, I somehow lose the ability to use magic altogether? Thinking about that possibility, Nova felt relief, panic. Panic. My presence is an integral part of me. It wasn't simply useful. It made the catcher who she was. Losing it would mean losing something irreplaceable. She had to stop these reflections. All they did was aggravate her already severe headache. I need a distraction. Talk to Onyx and Shin. Nova looked at her accomplices. Shin was sitting with his eyes closed and some of his buttons still undone, while Onyx leaned back against the wall and was tapping her foot on the floor nervously with her arms folded. The witch wanted to start a conversation, but the only thing that came to mind was a banal, "How are you feeling?" Or Shin's just gonna stare at her. Forget it. I don't know why I asked. A dull silence took over again, but not for long. Do you think we'll find a way out? Shin sucked in a sharp breath through his teeth, hugging himself. It was extremely unusual to see him so exhausted.
Let me see. The Pravis is dead. Both Nova and I have lost the ability to use our presence the way we're used to. And the Magistrum is now combing the entire Vatican, probably eager to shoot to kill. Taking all the above into account, I'm ready to make an educated guess that we are screwed.
Onyx snorted. Wow, thank you for the inspiring speech. You're still a pain in the ass, even when you're feeling shitty. Can't say that surprises me. Watching the altercation, which was a common thing for the two, the catcher suddenly felt something shrink inside her. About to make another sarcastic comment, Shin stopped when he heard a quiet half-sob, half-sigh. Nova suppressed a surge of emotions, blinking away a tear that hadn't had a chance to fall. Something got in my eye. I knew exactly what it was, the fear of death. The witch stretched out her legs, staring at the toes of her shoes. The short conversation left a bitter aftertaste. She wanted to get rid of it, but didn't know how. All of them felt lost and scared, but everyone was showing it in their own way.
Guess my predictions didn't account for the priest that decided to help us. He doesn't seem particularly sharp, voluntarily getting into this mess instead of running away as far as possible, but it's still something. Besides, you've still got your claws, Onyx. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe there's still hope for us.
Before the catcher could react to the obviously forced attempt at optimism, Onyx stepped in the middle of the room between her and Shin. The anamorphics lifted the witch to her feet first, then pulled one of the warlock's arms. Shin refused to get up, expressing his contempt for the idea with a withering look. I don't care what you think, oh you old wreck. You are going to get up and hug us, because we could die in the next half hour. This is our last opportunity to show each other that... The rest of the tirade never left her lips. Shin stood up, his face similar to that of a person who just agreed to eat a bowl of Jorge's salad. Knowing that it was the most she could expect from him, Onyx took the initiative again and pulled them both into a tight embrace. Neither of them moved for a minute. They stood, silently listening to each other's uneven breathing. They had things to say, so many that the words wanted to burst out of their chests, but none could capture the full range of what they were feeling. Overwhelming fear, timid hope, oppressive regrets, and that need, as fragile as a butterfly's wings. A need that transcended the pain of betrayal, guilt, warmth, support, friendship, and simple understanding that they were not alone. There was nothing more sincere, nothing more human than that. Letting go of each other, they exchanged heavy but open glances. "Thank you." Nova knew that the same gratitude burned inside her and inside Shin like a quiet fire.
"Anything to shut you up."
Onyx smirked, giving Shin a slight shove with her shoulder in response. Normally the warlock wouldn't have flinched, but this time the slight push nearly knocked him off his feet. "Don't expect an apology."
"With you I never do."
Shin settled back in his chair and closed his eyes. Nova thought about sitting in the chair next to his, but caught Onyx's eyes. She timidly pointed at one of those large chests. They sat on the chest together, the anamorphic sighed, trying to relax, and her knee lightly touched the catcher's. Nova bit her cheek, flexing her fingers that began to tingle. What if she pushes me away, and this has become our last memory of each other? Onyx still hadn't forgiven her. If she had, the catcher would have known about it by now. Yet she still wants to be around. Forbidding herself from overthinking anything, she reached out to intertwine her fingers with Onyx's. She wasn't going to let fear take this moment away from them. The anamorphics reacted instantly, squeezing her hand tightly until their knuckles went white. "Tell me everything will be okay, Nova." Nova smiled at her, touching her cheek with her other hand. "Everything will be okay, Onyx." Onyx froze on the inhale, shook her head as if disappointed that these words didn't bring her the comfort she'd hoped they would. "Do you believe that? Be honest." I don't know. But whatever the outcome, you will be by my side. Nothing matters to me more than that." Onyx smiled, but her smile faded almost as quickly as it appeared. Nova knew what the reason was. "I'm thinking about him too. About Talos." It was clear who she was referring to, so didn't have to mention his name, but she wanted to. And as if that could allow them to pretend Talos was with them right now. "He doesn't even know what the mission we're on. Vesper forbade me from telling him. He refused to let me go until I swore that I'd come back, that we would come back to him." Nova swallowed the lump in her throat. The three of them had so much to discuss, but those words, "to him," already determined so much. "If we don't..." "No. You swore it. Can't go back on that promise." "We'll get out of here, besides. You have 9 lives. Nothing to fear." "It might be fewer. I've lost count. And there isn't really anything or anyone I can ask. But I do have something to fear." She held a meaningful gaze as she traced her thumb along the witch's hand. What is it?" "I remembered our acquaintance." You mean you remember just standing there and watching me barely hold on to the edge of that roof?" Onyx's expression immediately grew serious. "I wouldn't have let you fall, you know that, right?" "Of course. And you keep your promises. Back then at Dee Dee's, you told me you'd come to my rescue if I was ever on the verge of death again, and here we are. Together. Feels like that was a century ago." Onyx kissed her on the temple and then gently laid Nova's head on her shoulder. "Get some rest." The witch closed her eyes. Nova's sense of time was so blurred that she could barely understand how long it took Renato to return. As soon as he entered, his gaze froze on the catcher's fingers interlaced with Onyx's. Swallowing, he quietly cleared his throat before speaking. "It's all clear. For now." Onyx, Shin, and Nova rose from their seats. It was noticeably difficult for the last two. Are you alright?" "Yes, it's just a minor discomfort." Warlock's face made it clear he begged to differ.
"Let's go. I want to get away from here as soon as possible."
Taking a deep breath, the priest nodded, and they moved towards the exit of the room. Somewhere nearby, discordant footsteps of a large group thundered ominously, accompanied by terse orders. They sneaked, keeping close to the cold walls. Renato, the only one who knew which route they needed to take, was leading them, but Onyx would move a little ahead occasionally to check if anyone was hiding around the corner.
Clear.
Their footsteps rustled in the unstable silence of the corridor. Soon, a metal door appeared in their field of vision. It's open. It will take you to the outside. Make sure not to turn towards the dungeons. Nova felt her heart stop beating. Can we really escape? The metal glittered in the dark. There it was, the path to freedom so close. I have to go. I'll try to distract the Magistrum somehow to buy you time. Thank you, Renata. Squinting, Shen nodded firmly to the priest, silently expressing his gratitude. He nodded back at him and then hurried away in the opposite direction. The catcher clenched her fist. Let's get out of here. Naturally, there were no objections. The trio moved forward. The distance between them and safety was rapidly shrinking. The passing final junction, they heard harsh voices around the corner. But alive. Hide behind the wall. Nova, Shen, and Onyx pressed themselves against the wall and froze. 1 second. Another.
Why are you still standing there? Come on, let's go.
I thought I heard something.
We need to go back to the others. You don't want Grigov to rip our heads off, do you?
Pause. Maybe it's just a draft. Nova exhaled slowly, recognizing the sound of retreating footsteps. That was close. The corners of her lips twitched up. But, as it turned out, the joy was premature. Shin, who was standing next to her, started coughing. In a desperate attempt to muffle the loud sound, he pressed his hand to his mouth and his fingers turned red with blood.
Did you hear that? Someone's there!
They're coming. We can't sneak past unnoticed. Neutralize the threat. Knowing they can't avoid a fight, Nova clenched her jaw. We won't give up that easily. Her gaze darted to Shin. He nodded, wiping away the blood, and the runes on his body lit up, though not immediately.
If we go down, let's at least take a couple of these bastards with us.
Heavy footsteps of the two people in tactical gear grew louder. Onyx rushed forward. What the?
Don't shoot!
The cat dodged their attacks, a dark blur darting from one wall to the other. As Onyx distracted them, Shin tried to concentrate, and an electrical charge flashed around his fingers. Nova took a deep breath, focusing on a spell that would stop all the Magistrum enforcers, but her presence didn't heed her command, instead materializing a time sphere right where Shin was standing. Her mind turned into a viscous mess as magic burned her consciousness. No. She clasped her hands, collapsing the sphere. Shin looked like he could barely stand on his feet, but apologies could have waited. There you are! Her shout pierced the corridor, and the witch was horrified to see the Questor had grabbed Onyx by the scruff of her neck, holding her at arm's length. You're right. Returning to her human form, the anamorphic struck the Questor in the stomach with her knee, knocked the weapon out of her hand, and then slammed her against the wall. The woman's eyes rolled back, and she slid down to the floor. It was too early to celebrate victory, however. The incipit was rapidly approaching the catcher as the sound of the reinforcements grew louder.
Eris, no.
Very blue. As Nova expected, the rays of energy didn't work as intended. She dodged one of them, and the incipit grinned, realizing that Shin's magic wasn't obeying him.
Well, would you look at that?
He turned toward Shin, and in that split second, the catcher managed to slip behind him and kick the back of his knees, forcing him to drop to the ground. A shot rang out, a bullet from his gun, now in Onyx's hands, buried itself in the incipit's thigh. He screamed, clutching his leg, and horror. Shin kicked away his weapon.
You missed.
No, I didn't. I was aiming there. Hey. Warlock and the Anamorphic shuddered as they came to their senses. The group rushed to the door, looking back at the approaching enemies. At the front, burning the others with his icy, cruel gaze, was Peter Grigorov. He wasn't running, he was walking, his steps wide and even, but still managed to remain at the head of the squad. Hi, buddy. How are you? Move back. A dozen guns stared at them, a dozen black abysses. Nova heard rumbling from behind.
Shit, it's locked. It's locked.
Is this really it? Her heart was beating in her throat. Her body twisted in pain and adrenaline. Grigorov wasn't going to stop. They were trapped. Oh, this is new. Please rate this episode. Your opinion helps us improve. I think it was good. Complete the episode. And we got 1 sun, 0 moon, 3 status, 0 power, diamonds. Look at that. Be right back. Alright, so, got our diamonds. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. Please remember that if you did enjoy the content, to like, share, and subscribe. Otherwise, let me know how the audio was, etc. Was the music too low, too quiet, too high, too whatever, and then also my voice, because I have changed some things. Long story short, for those of you asking for Romance Club, here it is. You know, I've been very, 1, busy, 2, we've been dealing with some difficulties. Pretty much, I made a video about that. There's a pin thing down below in the comment section. It'd be appreciated if you would check that out. Long story short, we didn't have a computer, okay? I couldn't upload anything. So I've been rushing to catch up on choices, let alone trying to get to this. You guys know that so far, every time the app does an update, I typically will jump on the new chapters within the first week or 2. Again, if I have no computer, I can't upload you anything. It means the channel is just kind of like non-existent. And thankfully, due to a couple supporters that are viewers just like you, we were able to stay afloat. But in order to continue making content, we do need viewers like you and many others to continue to help in any way you can see fit. So again, check that link down below. Otherwise, especially if you want more Romance Club, let alone any content, I'm going to be honest with you, any content, aside from that, thanks again for watching. I enjoyed the chapter, or episode, may I say, and, you know, it looks like the other one. It looks like also there is a diamond rush going to be happening later today. I thought I'd just go ahead and head this off, get some of these things done, because, again, I am rushing to play catch-up for you. Pretty much this is a job where, unless viewers support me, I do this just for you guys. That's it. So do keep that in mind. So we have 1 more episode, then we're caught up until the update. So once again, thank you for watching. Catch you all later. Peace out.